Hello everyone, welcome back to Deep Explain. Today we're unpacking a question that's taking center stage in Washington, D.C. and across America. Why did the U.S. government shut down in 2025? This isn't just another headline. It's a moment where money, politics, policy, and power collided, and millions of Americans are feeling the fallout. By the end of the video, you'll understand what triggered the shutdown, who's behind it, what it means for everyday people, and why it might be different from past shutdowns in a very significant way. The date to remember is October 1, 2025. That's when the federal government officially stopped funding many of its agencies because Congress couldn't agree on how to pay for the next fiscal year. The problem traces back to the fact that the U.S. budget process requires Congress to pass appropriation bills or continuing resolutions to keep things running. When they fail to act, non-essential government functions must halt. In 2025, this deadlock finally broke open. So, what broke down? First, political will. Republicans in the House, led by the Speaker and fiscally conservative members, demanded sweeping cuts, policy changes, and strict conditions around discretionary spending, especially on programs like foreign aid, broadcasting grants, and new health care subsidies. Meanwhile, Democrats pushed back hard on cuts to critical safety net programs, health insurance tax credits, food assistance expansions, and protections for vulnerable groups. Both sides came into the fight with non-negotiable demands. The compromise talks never got started. Secondly, process and precedent. For decades, Congress has relied on short-term budget patches, continuing resolutions to keep the government functioning. In 2025, the calculus changed. The White House and the Republican majority signaled they would not entertain the usual stopgap deals. They believed the government should either be funded on their terms or shut down. That signal alone raised the stakes, created leverage, and meant the shutdown was no longer an oops, we missed it moment. It was a strategic move. Thirdly, timing and ideology. The shutdown came just as the new fiscal year began. Programs and agencies were already operating under tight budgets. At the same time, the White House insisted that certain rescissions, cancellations of already approved funding, should be used as leverage. For example, cutting billions in foreign aid and public broadcasting money. That move deepened distrust because one side felt negotiations were being bypassed while the other side viewed it as bold leadership. So when the midnight deadline passed without an agreement, the government moved into shutdown mode. Non-essential employees were furloughed or told to work without pay, contracting halted. Some services stayed on because they are mandatory or self-funded, but many felt the sudden stoppage. Public service desks closed, federal workers received delayed paychecks, airports saw delays, and states braced for ripple effects. The shutdown is different for a few reasons. One, it is longer and its architecture is broader. Earlier shutdowns often centered on a single agency or department. This time the funding gap is huge, the demands wide, and the political environment more polarized. 2, the economy is already fragile. With inflation, supply chain strains, and global tension baked in, a shutdown's impact will be deeper. Analysts warned of billions in lost GDP, major economic disruption, and cascading effects into private sector hiring, consumer confidence, and state budgets. The tactical use of the shutdown as a policy tool. Instead of being an accident, the stalemate appears deliberate, a mechanism, not a malfunction. So what are the practical consequences? Families relying on food assistance programs saw alerts that benefits could be delayed. Federal law enforcement and military personnel continued to work, but the rules around pay and overtime became uncertain. Research grants, public health functions, and regulatory oversight all slowed down. Airports and travel infrastructure began to show signs of strain. States prepared emergency measures, and behind it all, the polling showed growing public frustration with both parties, but especially with the party seen as holding more cards. Let's not mistake this for merely budget drama. It's about power. When your government can't pay its workers or provide basic services, the message is clear. Either our system is failing or someone is making it fail. And in 2025, many Americans feel it is the latter. Now let's zoom out. Why does this matter for you? Because government shutdowns don't just affect Washington, they affect real lives. When teachers, first responders, scientists, park rangers, and federal contractors go without pay or face sudden uncertainty, it shakes trust. When the largest economy in the world shuts its doors, global stability rattles. When voters see gridlock and gamesmanship instead of governance, faith in democracy takes a hit. And here's the toughest question: who wins if the shutdown continues? On paper, no one, but in logic, each side is betting the other will cave. Republicans are betting that the pressure will force Democrats to accept their terms. Democrats are betting that public frustration will weaken the Republicans' negotiating position. Meanwhile, federal employees, everyday businesses, and the economy pay the tab for the gamble. In closing, why did the U.S. government shut down in 2025? Because the budget process was weaponized, political divisions were laid bare, and the structures designed to keep the lights on were ignored. This wasn't just an oversight. It was a breakdown in negotiation, a failure of compromise, and a test of the system itself. The shutdown is a symptom of deeper dysfunction when power, policy, and performance stop aligning. Thanks for watching Deep Explain. If you found this breakdown useful, please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell.